What's up, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm also going to talk about why tomorrow is going to be a very important day for the markets in Tesla and some bullish pieces of news that came out that helped Tesla push and test $375 a share. But just know that I'm not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed 15 in total, not to mention an 8.1% APY on uninvested cash. Anyways, just know this, guys. As far as Tesla is going, we have a very, very nice looking cup and handle like structure that we were talking about yesterday. And I did expect this to retest the 360 area for a nice push. And then I told everyone that if we broke 360, expect a more explosive move for Tesla. We did see this thing pump all the way up to 375, only to slow down a bit after that. So that was a great news by Tesla. We pumped very, very nicely. And if the whole market pumped, I think Tesla could have pumped even more. The market slowed down a bit. That's part of why Tesla ended up following the trend and slowing down as well. So the question now remains, why did Tesla pump the way it did? What news catalyst came out? And then what's happening for tomorrow? What is the big data I keep talking about? I'll be talking about all of that first before I break down more details about the charts. Just know this, the first bullish piece of news was this. It came from the Bank of America analyst known as John Murphy. He has raised the overall price target of the bank from $350 per share to $400, suggesting there's going to be more upside coming. That's about an 8.5% increase, at least from the current share price. That's a very, very nice increase from how this has been moving. So that's absolutely incredible news in my opinion. Why do they say this is going to happen? That's based off a lot of developments that they're seeing. They believe that Tesla could benefit from other political and macroeconomic factors, and that Tesla has a lot of upside coming when it comes to their robotics and AI development. They think that they're making a lot of progress when it comes to the robotaxi, and they're very excited for that. This is just after Morgan Stanley's analysts have said the same things, as they're also very, very bullish. So great news from Morgan Stanley and also Bank of America, giving Tesla $400 price targets and a lot of optimism as we get very close to development of the Cybercab and its release. Very, very awesome news. There's also another very, very bullish piece of news that came out during a nice event. Another one of the Cybercab engineers has come out, and they're now saying that Tesla has so much potential for the Cybercab in terms of its margins and in terms of its growth. And here's the reason why. So one thing that's worth mentioning, he said that it has 2 seats, and that's once again a big advantage in a lot of different ways. And then because of that, it gives them the ability to help cut a lot of costs because, if anything, the 2-seat design uses less energy, if anything, so it's more efficient when it comes to energy, better aerodynamics, and easy cleaning opportunities, which is very, very cool. He also mentioned, so the analyst also said that Tesla has the potential to use only half as many parts as they do for the Model 3. So that's some amazing news. So half or as many as less as like 40% of as many parts that go into its best selling like Model Y. That's absolutely incredible, guys. So way less parts than the Model 3 and the Model Y. By using like mounting and different techniques, they could once again help this become a lot more affordable. So this is going to make it a lot more easy to maintain. It's going to make it a lot cheaper to produce. And this has opened the doors for really nice margins despite the sub $30,000 pricing that Elon Musk has been talking about. That's very, very bullish news, especially since it's powered by a 40 kilowatt hour battery pack. It's going to be helping things a lot more, helping costs to be cut as well because of the fact that there's going to be like only 2 seats in it, so it's going to be easier to use, and it should be able to cover over 200 miles on a charge. So that's good news, right? The fact that they are now expected to be using a fraction of the Model Y parts and the Model 3 as well, and they're going to be a lot cheaper with good margins. That's leading to a lot of optimism by a lot of these investors. So that's a good piece of news for the Cybercab, good price targets by different analysts. That's why Tesla saw this very, very explosive move to the upside. Could we see $400 a share? Yes, we're not that far away from it, guys. $400 is not that far away. We could get there, but if we do get a small dip first, we'll be watching to see if Tesla holds support before it continues to uptrend. Now, volume went up to about 80 million, not bad whatsoever. Pretty good improvement. And then short volume is also decreasing right over here. You guys can see it. That means there's a lot of long buyers right now. And then Bank of America Securities gave Tesla a buy rating right after Stifel, and then Roth MKM came out and also gave them buy ratings. Historically, if you look at the price price ratio, it's very high right now because Tesla's building a lot of strength. It's very strong compared to the market. That's why this ratio is going up relative to the S&P 500. And then Fridays tend to be green only about 49% of the time, but Mondays and Tuesdays tend to be stronger for next week. So we could start off on a strong end for next week if we do end up seeing some weakness tomorrow, depending on some data. Um, Also know that at 11 o'clock a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we tend to see more volatility. And besides that, there's not really a whole lot else that's coming out. I also want to call out that in terms of our heat map, the market was very, very mixed. Okay. It was very, very mixed. We saw some tickers flat, such as Nvda and Apple. Other stocks were weaker, like Google and Meta. Other stocks were stronger, like Microsoft and Amazon, and Tesla outperformed everything, being up 3.23%. At some point, today was up almost by higher amounts. I think it was like almost 5% up at one point, only to slow down as the day went on, right? But that has more to do with the broader markets affecting it. So why is tomorrow such an important day now? How is this going to be affecting Tesla and beyond? It's because of this data right here. Tomorrow is going to be Friday, December 6th, 2024. 1 hour before the stock market opens at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have the non-farm, governmental, and manufacturing payrolls data all coming out. That's going to cause more volatility, so watch for that. And then the biggest thing is going to be the unemployment rate. That's very important for the Fed's policies. The Fed's job is to monitor unemployment, watch and see how things are looking, and that's going to affect our economy, how people view things, and it's going to affect the Fed's policies. That's why unemployment data is very important. So the two main things are going to be the payrolls and then unemployment at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 1 hour before market open. The big thing I would say is unemployment. If this number is 4% flat or under, that's more bullish for the markets, at least from a logical basis. If it's 4.1%, the market could go either way because that's the same as before. And if it's 4.2% or higher than that, that's going to be a little bit more bearish. So just keep that in mind. Low unemployment is going to be more bullish. And if it's above expectations, that's going to be more bearish. And if it's in the middle, as we expected, it could go either way for the markets. So just keep that in mind. Then at 10 o'clock a.m., we have some more data coming out from Michigan for inflationary expectations with a bunch of Fed speakers. But that's not as important. The most important stuff come out an hour before market open. So watch, see what happens with this volatility coming out. Now, as you guys know, I am not a fortune teller. I don't know what the data is going to look like. So I can't make promises about what this is going to cause. That's why you want to be very prepared for anything. But I will give you guys my opinions about the charts in just a minute. One last thing, we had Dollar General, a couple of earnings coming out. Everything was quite minor. Just know that Dollar General had very mixed earnings. That's why the share price was flat, not doing much. The market is close to neutral. We'll have to see if we get a big bounce or not, depending on how things end up going. Momentum remains at extreme greed. That's making up the majority of sentiment right now. There's a lot of greed still present in this market. For other factors, we have the puts and call option ratio at extreme greed because we're starting to see a lot more of these puts being closed continually, especially after what Jerome Powell has been saying about the economy yesterday, about how things are looking very strong. So right now, shorts are being closed, but typically when we see the ratio at these lows, the market does tend to see some small pullbacks. So just be careful right now. And then the VIX right over here is starting to bounce a bit. It needs to break some resistance to turn bullish. That could signify a small dip. So that being said, guys, that is the end of my news analysis. I just want to focus now on what's happening with the charts. So as far as Tesla goes, we have this cup and handle like structure, which is very, very bullish. But now it's going to depend on the unemployment numbers. If we get some bad numbers and we get a negative reaction from the markets, Tesla could be dipping back down to about 365 and then 362, very close to where the breakout happened to be. That's going to be the main support to watch for close to 360 if 365 fails us. If we're bullish, you want to see Tesla rebound and reclaim 370. If that's the case, you want to see it break 375 to turn bullish and start breaking out for 380. So it could go either way, but given the trend of the markets, there is a little bit of a higher probability Tesla might dip lower here, might dip a little bit more to get closer to 365, not 360 before it tries to bounce again. Just be careful, guys. There might be a small dip coming to Tesla because of what I'm seeing on the broader markets. But then even if that's the case, it could still bounce later on and remain on this very, very strong uptrend. Part of the reason why I say that is because we have a bearish divergence developing. It's because of this trend right here, this reversal structure that's developing, and also because of how the broader market looks, which I'll talk about in just a few minutes. You guys can see that Tesla pumped a bit. Now it's starting to dip here. So if it does dip a bit, it could try to bounce later on. Just keep that in mind. It's still doing fine. So don't worry too much about a small dip. That's completely normal. That's what the chart favors, but we'll see just to be safe depending on the data. For SPY, check this out, guys. We're barely at 606 right now, so this does look weaker technically speaking. I mentioned yesterday there's going to be some tough resistance coming to SPY, so be careful. And lo and behold, we did see a little bit of a dip. So we have kind of like a double top here. If we're bullish tomorrow, we get good data and the market's positive in terms of its reaction. SPY has to reclaim 607.5, then we could be retesting all-time highs and trying to break them. If not, if we don't hold above 606, we're looking for 604 as our support, not to mention 602.5. So looking at the 4-hour, I think that SPY looks a little bit more bearish, and this does favor downside a little bit more. And the chart does favor this gap getting filled back down towards 604. That's the most likely case, 604 to 602.5 being tested. However, I can't make any promises. It depends on the data. I'm not really a fortune teller. Just know the chart looks a little bit more bearish and it favors downside a little bit more. So we'll see if that ends up being the case. Just to be safe, watch the data tomorrow and we'll see how things end up going. For ES, we had this bearish divergence and a rejection so far. We're looking for 6,077 as the main support. If that fails, we're looking for 6,060, around that area to be our next support. Resistance, we're going to be looking for this zone right here around 6,090, not to mention 6,100. So watch those levels. To be bullish, you want to get back above at least 60.90. And if we lose 60.77, we turn more bearish. This is favoring and wants to dip a little bit more, so it might pop a bit and start dipping for 60.77 and then eventually the 60.60s. That's the most likely possibility looking at the trend, but we'll see just to be safe. For other factors out there, we have Bitcoin. Bitcoin has this resistance to watch for around 98,210. It's going to likely attempt to rebound a bit, but just know that we had a heavy resistance around the 100,000 area and a lot of profit taking, which caused this dip. So I anticipate it's going to dip. It's going to rebound a bit for the 98,200 area. If we reclaim 98,000, we could attempt to fill this imbalance at 99,000. And if we push to 98 to 99,000 and reject, it could still come back down to 95,000. So keep that in mind. Look for a bounce on Bitcoin for a small rebound, and we'll see if it gets a rejection as time goes on. So be very, very careful with this as time progresses. For NQ, this is looking weaker. I said yesterday, watch 21,500. If we hold above that, this would show some life. If not, it's going to be a tough resistance and this could be dipping. Lo and behold, we did not hold 21,500, so it's showing a little bit of weakness here. The level remains for tomorrow. If we break past that, we remain bullish. Otherwise, this is favoring the downside. This could attempt to rebound a bit, but this chart is favoring 21,400 flat, then 21,366 is our targets. Looks a little bit weaker in my opinion. Now for the QQQ, when you look at other stocks, and I'll talk about Nvda and Apple in just a minute, but just know that this is looking a little bit weaker in my opinion. The problem with the QQQ was the fact that we pushed up to this tough resistance, and I called that out yesterday to be careful at that level. If we manage to break past 523.5, we're looking for 524, then 525. We attempted to push there only to slow down. So now we're looking for 520 as the main support. If 520 fails us, we have a gap to fill down to 517. That also aligns with our 20 EMA. So there's a confluence of support right there and a potential magnet. I think that the most likely case is that we might attempt to come down to 517 to fill that gap. But we have to see if we lose 520 first. However, I don't know for sure. It depends on the data. So just watch for that just to be safe. I also want to call out that on the QQQ, I'm going to double check this just to be safe. There's a slight bearish divergence developing here, so that could signify a little bit of a dip. That's completely normal, not necessarily a surprise. And the daily chart looks a little bit more bearish, especially as we have this giant gap to fill. So that makes me favor downside a little bit more, at least technically speaking. Once again, technicals show this, but we'll see if the data aligns with this just to be safe. How about Nvda? Well, Nvda has the same thing going on. We called out 146 to be tested in my video yesterday. I said we might reject off that. Lo and behold, that's what happened. If we break that, we're going to be looking for 147.5, then eventually above that. And if it rejects, we're looking for a dip back down. So look at this support right here around 143.64. If that fails us, I'm looking for the 142 area. That's going to be quite a dip on Nvda. Even if Nvda dips, just know this, there's a possible left shoulder here. This could be a head, and maybe we're coming down from our right shoulder before it tries to bounce again. So we'll see if that ends up being the case. For now, the chart is favoring. It wants to go down to 144 flat, then the 142 area. I could be wrong when I say that because it depends on the data, so I'm not super confident about that decision. So we'll see how it goes. But anyways, guys, that's pretty much it, at least from what I see for Nvda. For others out there, we have Apple. Apple, unfortunately, hit 244 and was not able to hold above that. So 242 is going to be our main support. If that fails us, we're going back down to 240, so keep that in mind. As of right now, we're just consolidating in a range between the 242 zone and 244, so I do expect that to continue, but there is risk of this dipping lower if the whole market comes down a bit, so please keep that in mind. For others out there, we happen to have the rest of these tickers. And just know, guys, I have limited time, so I'm going to be kind of quick with the rest of my analysis. So we have Netflix on a very, very strong uptrend right now. Just like Tesla, it's on a strong uptrend, but there could be a small dip coming after this bearish candlestick on the 4-hour, which typically signifies a little bit of downside. So look at 920. If we don't hold above that, we're looking for a move back down towards like 915 and eventually the 910 area. So it might be dipping back down a bit before it tries to bounce again. So look for a small pullback as the most likely possibility. For MSTR, we look a little bit more bearish, especially after how Bitcoin's been performing. We have 392 and 400 as the main resistances, and if 384 does not hold, we're looking for a dip lower. I presume the most likely case is that we come down to where this imbalance is around 370. Might pop a bit, then start dipping to 370. We'll see if we bounce off that or not, but look for some potential downside as a stronger possibility. For Celsius, we look a little bit more bearish. We pumped and dumped, pumped and dumped, pumped and dumped many times, and we have this nice little liquidity grab right over here. It could push a bit for the 28s before it continues to dip lower, but it looks a little bit weaker to me. There is a range to watch for us. Look at support around 27.5. Look at resistance around 30. It could attempt to rebound a bit, but it's looking kind of weaker to me, so it might attempt to push these EMAs and then start dipping lower, especially if we get a negative reaction. For Supermicro, we had a high up here. We came down, made a lower high. This is a sign of weakness, so this does typically signify that 39.69 to 37.5 could be coming. So it could be dipping closer to 38 before it tries to bounce again, but overall there might be a small dip coming. For Palantir, we look very bullish right now. It looks like it wants to continue this uptrend. It has not lost 69.3 and 65 to turn bearish. So it is possible we dip to about 70 flat, if not 69, before it tries to bounce. But it still looks bullish. Even if we do get a small little dip, depending on the data, it could still try to bounce and remain bullish. Rivian is range bound between 11.5 and about 12.6 or 7. So we could be dipping back down for 12 flat before it tries to bounce. So keep that in mind. For SoFi, we have a head and shoulders like structure. It's not looking too good for bulls. So I would warn to be very careful with SoFi. We have a big red bar, on the 4-hour time frame. We need to reclaim 15.91. Otherwise, this will continue to dip for 15.36. So this is favoring a head and shoulders and a dip down to 15.36 is the most likely possibility. If that fails us, we go all the way down to 15, then 14.8. There's a risk of more downside on this chart, so be very careful with it. For the IWM, we have a bit of a downtrend right over here. We need to reclaim 238. Otherwise, there's a risk of this coming back down for essentially 236. So it looks a little bit more bearish to me. AMD is dipping a bit. We might be retesting 145. We'll have to see if we bounce off that or not. If not, we're likely dipping all the way down to 138. So be careful with AMD. It could be dipping a little bit lower. But we'll see if we bounce once that move ends up coming. So I do expect at least 140 or below, and we'll see if we bounce. For ARM, we have resistance at 140. If that does not hold us, look for 137.8. And if that fails us, I think we dip closer to 135. We'll see if we bounce off that or not. Coin is not looking that good. It pumped very nicely, so we were correct about the pump that was coming, but then it rejected. After getting the pump, it rejected. So now we're looking at support at 316.82. If that fails us, we're looking for 306. That's going to be our 50 EMA. We have resistance to watch for around 320. If that breaks, we're looking for essentially 325. So I think there's a risk of 316.8 and eventually 306. Might dip a little bit more, and we'll see if we get a bounce off that or not. For Amazon, we pumped very nicely to 220. We have this very, very tough resistance right over here. If that rejects, we're looking for essentially 217.5 to be our potential target. And if 220 holds, we're looking for 222 as our resistance. So watch these levels very closely. We could be dipping back down for essentially 218, and we'll have to see what kind of reaction we get. Amazon looks very flat, so it could go either way. The market could slow it down, but it's still holding up well, so I'm still in the middle of Amazon. But Meta looks a little bit more bearish. We have a bearish divergence in a double top leg structure. We need to reclaim 615 to turn back up. Otherwise, this is favoring a move back down to 600 flat, if not 599. So watch this support right here. We're barely at support around 605. If that does not hold, I think 600 is coming. For Microsoft, we're in a very, very nice uptrend. We do have some tough resistance at 444. The last time we had 444, we got a rejection. So if we don't hold above 444 or break it, this is going to be at risk of coming back down to 440. So be a little bit careful with Microsoft. For Google, we're rejecting right here. We're looking for essentially 173.3 is our main support. If that does not hold, I think 171 is coming. Watch these levels very closely. There's going to be a risk of this dipping lower, so give this some more time to develop. For GameStop, we're looking more bullish. This could attempt to break past 30, so I do see some potential in this. We'll see how the data that comes out tomorrow affects this, but it does have the potential to retest 30 plus. If that breaks, we're looking for 31. AMC has potential to break out for 5.4 if we hold above 5.2, but I'm not as sure about this. It depends on our data, but the chart does look like it's showing some life. For For DJT, we dipped a bit. We're looking for 33.38 as our main support. If that fails us, we're looking for 32. We'll see what kind of move we make, but there is that risk of a little bit more downside depending on the data. The VIX may attempt to bounce, but I want to see it break past 13.67. If that breaks, we're going to be looking for this imbalance fill for 14. That could signify some downside. The 10-year looks bearish, going for 4.15, not really affecting the market much. The dollar is not affecting the market much. It could be dipping for 105.5 before it tries to bounce. So my view of the market is very simple. Tesla is very bullish overall in terms of its trend. For the short term, there could be a small dip coming, depending on our data, of course. I can't truly predict everything, but I just want to say that there is a risk of that looking at how the charts are looking on the QQQ and everything else. And that could cause Tesla to dip just a little bit, so be prepared for that just to be safe. Watch the supports I called out, then we'll see if we bounce later on. Nonetheless, Tesla's still very bullish, but this is completely normal. I thank you all so much for listening. Have a good rest of your day, night, or evening, and I'll see you guys very soon tomorrow before market open. Thank you for listening, and peace out.